The bathroom floor was cold against Maggie Sullivan's cheek. 2:47 a.m. She'd memorized the green digits on the clock before her vision blurred. Blood dripped from her forehead into the white porcelain sink tap, 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 like a metronome, counting down something she didn't want to name. Her phone sat on the counter, 6 feet away. Might as well be 6 miles. "This is how it ends," she whispered to the empty room. Lone. Her wedding ring caught the nightlight's glow, throwing fractured rainbows across the tile. Thomas's voice echoed from 5 years ago, from his hospital bed. "Promise me you won't push Jenny away. Promise me you'll let people in." She'd promised. She'd lied. Maggie's fingers scraped a little, reaching toward the phone. The door remained closed. No one knew she was here. The thing on her forehead wasn't a pimple anymore. How did it come to this? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. 2 months earlier, Pleasant Grove, Iowa, had looked exactly as it always did. Population 387, where everyone knew your name and half your business. Maggie Sullivan's Victorian house stood on Maple Street, 4 bedrooms for 1 person. Each room a museum of a life that used to be. 6 a.m. Coffee, crossword puzzle, the kitchen table where Thomas used to read the paper. His chair stayed empty. Maggie was 67, retired from teaching elementary school after 38 years. Her pension deposited $1.8147 every month after taxes. Medicare Part B took its cut. She had odd 3 in savings, labeled in her checkbook as final expenses. The house was paid off. She should have felt secure. Instead, she felt hollow. The silence pressed against her ears like water. No television, no radio. Just the grandfather clock in the hallway, ticking away seconds she didn't know what to do with. She avoided mirrors unless absolutely necessary. The woman looking back wasn't anyone she recognized anymore. Thomas had died 5 years ago. Sudden, a heart attack at the hardware store, gone before the ambulance arrived. Their daughter Jennifer had come home from San Diego for the funeral, stayed 2 weeks, then left. Maggie had insisted, "You have your own life, honey, your own family." Jennifer had 2 children now, Emma, 8, and Lucas, 6. Maggie had seen them exactly twice in person. Every Sunday at 10 a.m. Jennifer called. The conversations lasted 4 minutes, maybe 5. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine." "How are the kids?" "Good. Busy with school." "That's nice." Silence. "Well, I should let you go." "Okay. Love you. Love you too." Maggie used to be different. In 1989, she'd been the young teacher everyone loved, the PTA president who knew every parent's name, the volunteer coordinator who organized bake sales and blood drives. She'd married Thomas Sullivan straight out of high school. He'd proposed on the bleachers after the homecoming game. Jennifer was born in 1985, their miracle baby. After years of trying, back then, Maggie's kitchen table had been crowded with neighbors drinking coffee, students coming by for extra help, church ladies planning potlucks. Her friend Ruth used to say, "Maggie Sullivan knows everyone in 3 counties." When Thomas died, something in Maggie died too. Ruth stopped by for months, then less, then not at all. The invitations kept coming: senior center activities, church socials, coffee with the retired teachers. Maggie declined them all. "I'm fine," she'd say. "Just tired." Next door lived Robert Henderson. Everyone called him Bob. 72, retired postal worker, widower for 3 years. His wife Helen had died slowly, and Bob had nursed her through every awful moment. He still wore his wedding ring. His garage held a 1907 Chevrolet Impala, mint condition, that he'd bought for their 25th anniversary. Helen had died 6 months later. Bob only drove it on their anniversary, circling the block once, then parking it again across the street. Patricia Moore, Patty, lived with her sister, 58, retired oncology nurse. Widowed, she baked when she was worried, which was often. Bob waved at Maggie most mornings. Maggie waved back, then went inside quickly. This was her life now, small, quiet, safe, until August 15th, when everything changed. Wednesday morning, August 15th. Maggie's alarm went off at 5:30 as always. She padded to the bathroom in her worn slippers, turned on the light, and reached for her face wash. That's when she saw it. A small bump on her forehead, right side, near the hairline, flesh-colored, slightly raised, about the size of a pencil eraser. Maggie leaned closer to the mirror, frowning. She touched it gently, firm. Didn't hurt. She pressed harder. Nothing. Just a pimple, she muttered. I'm 67, not 17. She washed her face, patted it dry, tried to ignore the bump. In the kitchen, she made coffee and opened the newspaper. The bump itched. She touched it again. Still there. By noon, she'd looked at it 6 more times. No, it seemed slightly larger, but that was probably her imagination. She found concealer in the bathroom drawer, hadn't worn makeup in months, and dabbed some on. Better. Barely visible. Day 3, Friday. The bump was definitely bigger, pink around the edges now, the size of a small pea. It itched constantly. Maggie caught herself touching it every few minutes, checking if it had changed. Saturday morning, she scratched it in her sleep, woke up to a small scab and blood on her pillowcase. She stared at the rust-colored stain, heart beating faster than it should. It's nothing, she said to the empty bedroom. Everything is nothing. Bob waved from his yard that afternoon. Maggie was getting the mail. She waved back, noticed he was looking at her forehead. She was wearing a baseball cap, Thomas's old Cubs hat she'd found in the closet. She never wore hats. Hot day, huh? She called out, touching the brim, an explanation he hadn't asked for. Bob nodded slowly, said nothing. Sunday. The scab had fallen off, revealing raw pink skin underneath. The bump was still there, larger now. Maggie covered it with a Band-Aid, then removed it. Too obvious. She tried the concealer again. It didn't help much. Patty knocked on the door at 2 p.m. with banana bread, wrapped in foil. Thought you might like some, Patty said, smiling. Her eyes flickered to Maggie's forehead, then quickly away. Thank you. That's kind. Maggie took the bread, held it like a shield between them. Would you like to come in for coffee? Patty asked. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm actually busy right now. Thank you. Though, Maggie was already closing the door. Patty's smile faded. All right. Well, if you need anything, I'm fine. Thanks for the bread. The door clicked shut. Maggie stood behind it, breathing hard, feeling cruel and relieved at the same time. That evening, her phone rang. 10 p.m. exactly. Jennifer's weekly call. Hi, Mom. How are you? Fine. How are the kids? Good. Emma lost another tooth. Lucas made the soccer team. That's wonderful! Silence stretched between them. 2,000 miles of things unsaid. Mom, you sound different. Is everything okay? Maggie's hand went to her forehead, touched the bump. She opened her mouth. Almost said it. I found something. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Just tired, she said instead. Long day. You should rest more. Take care of yourself. I do. How's David? They talked for 3 minutes and 47 seconds. When Jennifer hung up, Maggie sat in the dark kitchen, phone still in her hand. She'd almost told her, almost, Monday night, she couldn't sleep. Got up at 11:30, opened her laptop at the kitchen table, typed into the search bar, skin bump, won't go away elderly. The results loaded, articles about skin tags, age spots, seborrheic keratosis, normal things, old people things. She scrolled down, then warning signs of skin cancer. Her finger hovered over the link. She clicked it, read the first paragraph, saw the words basal cell carcinoma and melanoma, saw photos of lesions that looked nothing like her bump and some that did. She closed the laptop so hard it snapped. Age spots, she said to the empty room. Just age spots. She took a sleeping pill and went to bed. Day 10, Tuesday, August 27th. The bump was the size of a dime. It bled when she accidentally scratched it while washing her face. She pressed toilet paper against it, watched red seep through white. Her hands were shaking. She tried tea tree oil, apple cider vinegar, bought various ointments at the drugstore, using the self-checkout so she wouldn't have to talk to anyone. Nothing helped. Day 14. The bump had irregular borders now, multiple colors, pink, red, a dark spot in the center. It didn't look like a pimple anymore. It didn't look like anything normal. Thursday. Bob came to her front door instead of leaving her mail in the box. Maggie, he said when she opened the door. He was holding her electric bill and a grocery store flyer. I wanted to ask you something. Bob stood on her porch, mail in hand, not leaving. Maggie felt exposed in the doorway, afternoon sunlight making it impossible to hide. My wife, Helen, Bob said quietly. She had a spot like that once, on her back. Ice flooded Maggie's stomach. It's nothing, just a... She said the same thing. Bob's voice was gentle, but his eyes were serious. Said it for 9 months. Maggie's hand went to her forehead instinctively. Bob, I appreciate your concern, but by the time she went to the doctor, it was stage 3 melanoma. He said it matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. 14 months later, she was gone. The silence between them felt heavy. A car drove past. Mrs. Chen's dog barked down the street. Normal sounds in a conversation that wasn't normal at all. I'm sorry about Helen, Maggie said, but this is different. Maybe. Bob handed her the mail. There's a medical center brochure in there, just in case. He walked back to his house. Maggie looked down at the stack in her hands. There it was. Pleasant Grove Medical Center, bright blue lettering. She threw it in the trash as soon as she closed the door. Labor Day weekend arrived. The town festival filled Main Street with vendors and live music. Maggie used to help organize it, but this year she stayed home, curtains drawn, hat on even inside the house. The bump was impossible to ignore now, raised and pearly around the edges, with a central depression that sometimes oozed clear fluid. She'd stopped trying to cover it with makeup. Band-aids fell off. She wore Thomas's baseball cap constantly. Tuesday morning, she needed groceries. She'd been avoiding the store, living on canned soup and crackers. Finally, hunger forced her out. She drove to the Save Mart, used the self-checkout, kept her head down. In the parking lot, loading bags into her trunk, she heard her name, Maggie Sullivan. She turned. Patty was walking toward her, concern written all over her face. "I haven't seen you in weeks. I was getting worried." Patty was close now, too close. Her nurse's eyes went straight to Maggie's forehead. "Oh, honey, that needs to be looked at. It's fine. Just a scratch from the garden." Maggie." Patty's voice shifted, became professional. "I was an oncology nurse for 30 years. That's not a scratch. I said it's fine." Maggie slammed the trunk harder than she meant to. "When did it appear? How long have you had it? That's none of your business." "You're right. It's not." Patty stepped back, hands up in surrender. "But I care about you, and that lesion has characteristics that concern me." "Lesion?" Maggie laughed, but it came out wrong. "It's a pimple. Please, just get it checked, for your own peace of mind." Maggie got in her car, started the engine. Patty was still standing there when Maggie drove away, watching her go with those knowing, worried eyes. Wednesday morning, 7 a.m., someone was knocking on her door. Persistent, rhythmic knocking that wouldn't stop. Maggie stumbled downstairs in her nightgown and robe. Through the peephole, she saw Bob holding 2 paper coffee cups. She opened the door a crack. "It's 7 in the morning." "I know. I brought coffee." He held up the cups like an offering. "Bob, I'm not leaving. Maggie, I've got all day. I'm retired." He sat down on her porch step, set 1 coffee beside him. "Your coffee's getting cold." She stared at him through the gap in the door. "This is ridiculous." "Probably." He took a sip of his coffee, completely comfortable. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Bob just sat there, watching the sunrise, occasionally drinking his coffee. Maggie watched him through the window. Stubborn old man. 15 minutes, 20. Finally, she opened the door and stepped out, picked up the coffee cup. It was lukewarm now. "Helen had melanoma," Bob said, not looking at her. "Started as a little mole on her back. She couldn't see it easily. I noticed it changing, but she said I was being paranoid." Maggie sat down on the step beside him, not speaking, just listening. By the time she agreed to see someone, it had spread to her lymph nodes, stage 3, like I said. They tried everything: surgery, immunotherapy, radiation. His voice cracked slightly. 14 months of watching her suffer, lose her hair, lose weight, lose hope. "Bob, the last thing she said to me—" He stopped, composed himself. "She said, 'I should have listened to you.'" Maggie looked at this man she'd known for years, but never really seen, his weathered hands holding the coffee cup, the grief etched into the lines around his eyes, the wedding ring he still wore. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know." "What if it's bad?" "Then you fight it, and you don't fight it alone." He turned to look at her, really look at her. "I couldn't save Helen, but maybe I can help you." Tears blurred Maggie's vision. "Why do you care?" "Because neighbors take care of each other, because Helen would want me to, because you're worth caring about, whether you believe that or not." They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher. Maggie's coffee was cold. She drank it anyway. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Bob nodded. "That's all I'm asking." He stood up, collected his empty cup, started down the steps. "Bob." Maggie's voice was small. He turned. "Thank you. For the coffee." He smiled. "Any time, Maggie. Any time." That night, Maggie woke at 2 a.m., had to use the bathroom, turned on the light and caught her reflection. The wound on her forehead was bleeding again, a thin red line running toward her eyebrow. She grabbed the sink, dizzy. The room tilted. She fell. The bathroom floor was cold. Maggie's cheek pressed against the tile, her body refusing to move. The fall hadn't hurt. She'd sort of crumpled down rather than crashed, but the shock of it pinned her there. Blood dripped from her forehead into the white sink basin. Tap, tap, tap. Her phone was on the counter, 6 feet away. She could see it from where she lay. The dark screen reflecting the nightlight's dim glow. 6 feet, impossible distance. She lay there for 40 minutes, thinking, remembering Thomas's funeral, standing at the graveside in her black dress. Jennifer on one side, a sea of faces on the other. The whole town had come. Thomas had been beloved, coached Little League, volunteered at the food bank, knew everyone's name. After they lowered him into the ground, people had approached her with casseroles and condolences. "If you need anything," they'd said, "anything at all." She'd smiled and thanked them and meant none of it. She didn't need anything. Needing things meant being weak. The first year, people tried. Ruth came over every Tuesday with coffee. Patty invited her to Bridge Club. The church ladies called about the Christmas pageant committee. Maggie said no to everything politely at first, then less so. Eventually, they stopped asking. Jennifer had tried too. "Mom, come stay with us for a while. The kids would love it." But San Diego felt impossibly far away, and Maggie couldn't imagine being a burden in her daughter's busy life. "I'm fine here," she'd said. "This is my home." 5 years of being fine, 5 years of being alone. And now, lying on a bathroom floor at 2 in the morning, bleeding from a wound she'd ignored for too long. Maggie understood with brutal clarity, this is how I'll die. Alone, she started to crawl. 6 feet felt like 6 miles. Her nightgown caught under her knee. She freed it, kept moving, reached the counter, pulled herself up, grabbed the phone. Her thumb hovered over the emergency call button. 911. They'd come. An ambulance, paramedics, questions. Everyone would know. The whole town would talk about Maggie Sullivan, found collapsed in her bathroom, too proud to ask for help, until it was almost too late. She scrolled to Jennifer's contact instead. Jenny Baby, with a heart emoji. Jennifer had added herself years ago during a visit. The photo showed Jennifer at 20, graduation day, beaming in her cap and gown. Maggie's finger hovered over the call button. It was 11 p.m. in California. Jennifer would be getting ready for bed, or maybe already asleep. David worked early mornings. The kids had school. She couldn't call. What would she even say? "I'm scared. I need you. I've been lying for months." Instead, she scrolled to Bob's number, typed, "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The response came in 30 seconds. Bob had been awake. "I'll be there." Maggie cleaned the blood off her face, put a bandage over the wound, and went back to bed. She didn't sleep. At 9 a.m. exactly, Bob's truck pulled into her driveway. Maggie was waiting on the porch, purse in hand, wearing her nicest cardigan over a blue blouse. She'd tried to cover the wound with makeup, but it was too large now. The bandage showed clearly. Bob got out, walked up the path, said nothing about her appearance, nothing about her agreeing to go, just ready as I'll ever be. The drive to Pleasant Grove Medical Center took 12 minutes. Bob turned on the radio soft jazz, nothing intrusive. Maggie watched the familiar streets pass, the elementary school where she'd taught, the library where she'd volunteered, the diner where she and Thomas used to have breakfast every Saturday. She'd lived here her whole life. 67 years in the same town. She knew every street, every family, and yet driving to the doctor felt like traveling to a foreign country. The medical center was a low brick building near the highway. Bob parked, turned off the engine. "Want me to come in?" "You don't have to." "That's not what I asked." Maggie looked at her hands, folded in her lap. "Yes, please?" Inside, the waiting room smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. The receptionist looked up, smiled. "Maggie Sullivan, I haven't seen you in ages. How are you?" Karen Henderson, no relation to Bob. Her daughter, Amy, had been in Maggie's third-grade class 15 years ago. "I'm fine. Karen, here to see Dr. Williams." "Of course. Just fill out these forms." "Insurance card." Maggie handed over her Medicare card, took the clipboard, sat next to Bob in the vinyl chairs. Her hand shook, filling out the forms. Medical history, current medications, reason for visit. She stared at that last line. What could she write? "Ignored a growing lesion for 3 months because I'm too proud to admit I need help." She wrote, "Skin concern on forehead." 20 minutes later, a nurse called her name, Maggie Sullivan. Bob stood up with her. "You can wait here, sir." The nurse said, "He's coming with me," Maggie said, surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. The nurse smiled. "Of course, right this way." They walked down a hallway, past examination rooms and a small lab. The nurse led them to room 3, handed Maggie a gown. "Dr. Williams will be right in." After the nurse left, Bob turned his back while Maggie changed. She kept her pants on, just removed her cardigan and blouse, put on the thin paper gown, sat on the examination table, feeling ridiculous and vulnerable. "You doing okay?" Bob asked, still facing the wall. "No." "That's honest. Anyway." A knock on the door. "Mrs. Sullivan, may I come in?" "Yes." The door opened. Dr. Sarah Williams stepped in, tablet in hand, and stopped. Her professional smile faltered for just a moment. "Mrs. Sullivan." Maggie looked at her, really looked, and recognition crashed over her like a wave. "Shuckt." Her voice came out barely a whisper. "Sarah Patterson." "Williams?" Now the doctor's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my God, Mrs. Sullivan." They stared at each other. 25 years collapsed in an instant. Sarah Patterson had been in Maggie's third-grade class in 1999. A quiet girl with dark braids and serious eyes. Her mother, Linda, had been diagnosed with breast cancer that year. Maggie remembered Sarah coming to school with a brave face. Remembered the drawings she'd made of her mother, with no hair, but a big smile. Linda Patterson had died in March of 2000. Maggie had attended the funeral, had held 8-year-old Sarah's hand during the service, had helped the family organize meals and childcare for weeks after. "I didn't know you were back in Pleasant Grove," Maggie said. 3 years now. I joined the practice after my residency. Sarah wiped her eyes, professional composure returning. I've thought about you so many times. You were there for us when Mom died. You checked on us for months. You helped Dad figure out how to do my hair. She laughed through tears. Those terrible braids. They weren't terrible. They were disaster. Sarah moved closer, pulled up a stool. Mrs. Sullivan, I became a doctor because of you. Because you showed me that caring for people matters, that showing up matters. Maggie's throat tightened. She couldn't speak. Sarah's demeanor shifted then, became professional. She glanced at Bob. And you are Bob Henderson, neighbor, friend. Sarah nodded, turned her attention to Maggie. Karen noted you're here for a skin concern. May I take a look? Maggie removed the bandage. Sarah's face remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. She pulled a magnifying light closer, examined the lesion carefully, took measurements, photographed it from multiple angles. How long has this been present? Maggie hesitated. Bob spoke up. At least 2 months that I know of, Mrs. Sullivan. About that, maybe a bit longer. Sarah sat back. I need to be honest with you. This has characteristics concerning for malignancy. The irregular borders, the multiple colors, the way it's bleeding, these are warning signs. The word malignancy hung in the air, like smoke. You're saying cancer, Maggie said flatly. I'm saying it's possible. I can't diagnose without a biopsy. Sarah's voice was gentle but direct. I'd like to perform one today. It's a simple procedure, local anesthetic, small sample. Results take 5 to 7 business days. And if it is cancer, there are several types of skin cancer. Basal cell carcinoma is most common and highly treatable. Squamous cell, also very treatable. Melanoma is more serious, but even that has good outcomes when caught early. And if it's not early, Sarah met her eyes. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we find out what we're dealing with. How much does a biopsy cost? The question came out sharper than Maggie intended. Sarah glanced at her tablet. Your Medicare Part B should cover 80% after your deductible. Your portion would be around $400. $400. Maggie did the math quickly. She had $8,300 in savings. $400 she could manage. And if it's cancer, what then? Treatment depends on the type and stage. Could be as simple as a surgical excision. Could require more extensive surgery or radiation. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Maggie looked at Bob. He nodded slightly. Okay, she said. Do the biopsy. The procedure took 15 minutes. Sarah numbed the area, used a small punch tool to remove a tiny cylinder of tissue, stitched it closed with 2 sutures. Maggie barely felt it. Bob held her hand the whole time. After, Sarah bandaged the site, printed out care instructions. Keep it clean and dry. The sutures will dissolve on their own. I'll call you as soon as I have results, probably by next Monday or Tuesday. Thank you. Sarah. No. Sarah touched Maggie's shoulder. Thank you for everything you did for my family. Let me be here for you now. In the car, Bob didn't start the engine right away. Just sat there, hands on the steering wheel. You okay? He asked. No, but I will be. That's the spirit. Bob, yeah, thank you for not giving up on me. He started the engine. You're worth not giving up on, Maggie. The week waiting for biopsy results was the longest of Maggie's life. Each day stretched like taffy, hours moving at half speed. She checked her phone constantly, jumped every time it rang. Bob came by every morning with 2 coffees, never asked permission, just showed up at 7 a.m. and sat on her porch until she came out. They'd sit together watching the sunrise, not talking much. His presence was steady like an anchor. On Thursday, Patty appeared at the door with a casserole. "Chicken and rice," she said. "Made too much again?" Maggie knew that was a lie. Patty never made too much of anything, but she accepted the dish, and this time she invited Patty inside. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Maggie had eaten alone for 5 years. Patty poured them both tea from the pot she'd brought, not asking if Maggie wanted any, just doing it. "I had the biopsy," Maggie said, Patty's hand stilled on the teapot. "When Monday. Results should come early next week." "How are you holding up?" "I'm terrified." The honesty surprised Maggie. She'd spent so long saying "I'm fine" that admitting fear felt like speaking a foreign language. Patty reached across the table, covered Maggie's hand with hers. "Whatever it is, you don't have to go through it alone. I've been alone for 5 years." "By choice," Patty said gently. "We've all been here, Maggie, waiting, hoping you'd let us back in." Maggie looked at this woman she'd kept at arm's length, this neighbor who'd never stopped trying. "I don't know why I pushed everyone away. Grief does strange things, makes us feel like we don't deserve happiness, like being alone is somehow honoring the person we lost." Patty squeezed her hand. "But Thomas wouldn't have wanted this for you." Sunday came, 10 a.m. The phone rang. Jennifer, this time. Maggie answered on the first ring. "Hi, honey. Mom, you sound different. What's wrong?" Maggie took a breath. The words stuck in her throat for a moment, then broke free. "I need to tell you something." "What is it? Are you okay?" "I found a spot on my forehead. About 3 months ago, I had a biopsy done this week." Silence on the other end. Then, 3 months, Mom. Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to worry you. Worry me." Jennifer's voice rose. "Mom, I am your daughter. That's my job, to worry about you, to be there for you." "I know. I'm sorry. When do you get the results?" "Tomorrow or Tuesday, probably." "I'm coming home." "Jennifer, no. You don't need to." "Mom." Jennifer's voice was firm now, an adult daughter speaking to her mother with loving authority. "Stop. I'm coming home. I'm booking a flight right now. I'll be there by tomorrow night." "The expense?" "I don't care about the expense. I care about you." Jennifer's voice cracked. "I've been trying for years. Mom, years. Every time I call, you're fine. Every time I suggest visiting, you're busy. I know you're hurting. I know you've been lonely. And I've let you push me away because I didn't know how to fight through your walls." Tears streamed down Maggie's face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you, Mom, and I'm coming home." End of discussion. After they hung up, Maggie sat at the kitchen table and cried, really cried, for the first time since Thomas died. Big, ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep inside, from 5 years of holding everything in. Bob found her like that an hour later. He'd knocked, gotten no answer, let himself in through the unlocked door. "Maggie!" She looked up, face blotchy and wet. "Jennifer's coming home." Bob smiled. "Good." Monday morning, Maggie woke at 6, made coffee, stared at the phone. No call yet. She cleaned the kitchen, vacuumed the living room, made Jennifer's old bed with fresh sheets, checked her phone. Still nothing. At 2 p.m., it finally rang. Dr. Williams' office. "Mrs. Sullivan, this is Dr. Williams. I have your biopsy results." Maggie's hand tightened on the phone. "Okay, it's basal cell carcinoma." The words hit like a fist. Cancer. It was really cancer. "Mrs. Sullivan, are you there?" "Yes, I'm here." Sarah's voice was calm, professional, reassuring. "Basal cell carcinoma is the most common type of skin cancer. It very rarely metastasizes. That means it doesn't spread to other parts of the body. It's highly treatable." What does treatment mean? In your case, given the size and location, I'd recommend Mohs surgery. It's a specialized technique where we remove the cancer layer by layer, examining each layer under a microscope until we reach clear margins. It has the highest cure rate, over 90%. "Surgery?" Maggie's voice sounded hollow. "I know it sounds scary, but it's outpatient. You'd go home the same day. I'm referring you to Dr. Catherine Bennett in Cedar Rapids. She's the best Mohs surgeon in the region." "How much does it cost?" A pause. "The surgery typically runs between $12,000 and $18,000. Medicare Part B covers 80% after your deductible. Your out-of-pocket portion would be approximately $4,000 to $7,000, depending on the complexity." $4,000 to $7,000. Maggie did the math automatically. She had $8,300 in savings, minus the $400 she'd already paid. $7,900 left. If the surgery was on the lower end, she'd have maybe $1,000 left. If it was higher, she'd be in debt. "Mrs. Sullivan, I know cost is a concern. The hospital has payment plans, and there are financial assistance programs. I don't take charity." The words came out harder than she meant. "It's not charity. It's health care assistance. Many people use these programs. When would the surgery be? Dr. Bennett's office will call you tomorrow to schedule, ideally within the next 3 weeks. The sooner, the better." After hanging up, Maggie sat motionless at the kitchen table. Cancer, surgery, $7,000 she might not have. She looked around her kitchen at the house she'd lived in for 40 years, the house that was paid off but old and needed constant repairs. She could take out a home equity loan at 67 with a fixed income of $1,800 a month. The bank would laugh at her. She could sell things. Thomas's watch collection might bring $2,000. Her mother's china, maybe $800. Her wedding ring, no, never. She could ask Jennifer. Her daughter had a good job, a nice house in San Diego. But asking felt like failure, like admitting she couldn't take care of herself. Bob knocked at 4 Pimple. She let him in, told him about the diagnosis. "Okay," he said, "so we know what we're dealing with. That's good. Now we can fight it. Bob, I can't afford this. We'll figure it out. I have some savings. Maggie." He sat across from her, his weathered hands flat on the table. "I have money saved. Let me help." "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "Because I'm not your responsibility." "Because you've already done too much." "Or because I can't accept that kind of—" "What?" That kind of what? His voice was gentle but firm. Kindness? Help. That's what neighbors do. Maggie, that's what friends do. We're not friends. We're just neighbors who wave at each other. Bob looked at her for a long moment. Is that really what you think? After everything, Maggie's defenses crumbled. I don't know what to think anymore. Think about this. You spent 38 years teaching children, buying supplies out of your own pocket when families couldn't afford them, staying late to tutor kids for free, organizing fundraisers when teachers got sick. You gave to this community for decades. That was my job. No, your job was to teach reading and math. Everything else, that was you caring about people. And now people want to care about you. Why is that so hard to accept? Because I'm supposed to be the one who helps, not the one who needs help. Says who? Maggie had no answer. Bob stood up. Jennifer gets in tonight. 7:30. Want me to drive you to pick her up? Maggie almost said no, then stopped herself. Yes, thank you. After Bob left, Maggie went upstairs to Jennifer's old room. It looked exactly as it had when Jennifer left for college in 2003. Posters on the walls, stuffed animals on the bed, track trophies on the shelf. She sat on the bed, picked up the worn teddy bear Jennifer had slept with until she was 12. Tomorrow her daughter would be here. Tomorrow she'd have to face everything she'd been hiding. The phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Boarding now? See you soon, Mom. I love you. It's Maggie, typed back, slowly. I love you too, so much. Jennifer's rental car pulled into the driveway at 7:45 p.m. Maggie watched from the window as her daughter got out, then opened the back door. Emma emerged first. 8 years old with dark braids. Then Lucas, she's clutching a stuffed dinosaur. Maggie's grandchildren. She'd seen them on video calls, but in person they looked so much bigger, so much more real. She opened the front door. Jennifer looked tired, her eyes glitter-brimmed. They'd been crying on the plane. Maggie realized she's crying about her. For a moment, mother and daughter just stared at each other across the porch. Then Jennifer saw the bandage on Maggie's forehead, and something broke inside her. She rushed forward, wrapped her arms around her mother. Mom, she whispered. Oh, Mom. They stood there, holding each other, both crying. Emma and Lucas watched uncertainly from the driveway. Grammy! Emma's small voice. Why are you sad? Maggie pulled back, wiped her eyes, knelt down despite the pain in her knees. Happy tears, sweetheart. Grammy's just very happy to see you. Lucas ran forward, crashed into her with a hug that nearly knocked her over. Emma followed, more cautiously. Maggie wrapped her arms around both of them, breathing in their kid smell of airplane peanuts and apple shampoo. Inside, the house came alive. Kids' voices echoing in rooms that had been silent for years. Emma, exploring everything, touching Maggie's knickknacks with careful fingers. Lucas finding Thomas's old chess set and begging someone to teach him. Jennifer unpacked in her old room while Maggie made spaghetti simple. But it was something. The four of them sat at the kitchen table. The first family dinner in this house in 5 years. Grammy, what happened to your head? Emma asked, pointing at the bandage. Emma, don't point, Jennifer said automatically. It's okay. Maggie touched the bandage. Grammy had to have a little procedure. I'm fine now. Does it hurt? Not much anymore. After dinner, After the kids were settled in front of a movie in the living room, Jennifer and Maggie sat at the kitchen table with tea. The conversation they'd both been avoiding. "Tell me everything," Jennifer said. So, Maggie did. The bump appearing in August, ignoring it for months. Bob's intervention, the biopsy, the diagnosis yesterday, the upcoming surgery that she couldn't afford. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When Maggie finished, her daughter pulled out her phone. "What are you doing?" Maggie asked. "Calling David. We're paying for the surgery." "No, absolutely not. Mom, we can afford it. David got a promotion last year. We've been saving." I said, "No." Maggie's voice was sharp. "I won't take money from you." "Why not?" Jennifer set her phone down, frustration creeping into her voice. "Why is it so hard for you to accept help? Because I'm your mother. Mothers help their children, not the other way around. That's not how family works." Jennifer's voice rose slightly. "Family helps family. When someone needs help, you help them. That's what you taught me. I taught you to be independent, to stand on your own 2 feet. No, Mom, you taught me that asking for help means you're weak, that needing people makes you a burden." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Do you know how many times I've wanted to come home to visit, to help, just to be with you? You have your own life. You're my life." Jennifer stood up, pacing. "You and Dad raised me. You taught me everything. And when Dad died, you shut down. You shut me out. I was grieving." "I know. So was I. I lost my father, and then I lost my mother, too. You were still alive, but you were gone." The words hit like stones. Maggie stared at her daughter, seeing the pain she'd caused written all over Jennifer's face. "I called you every week," Jennifer continued, voice shaking, "every Sunday, 10 a.m. Do you know how those calls felt? 4 minutes of you telling me you're fine, when I could hear in your voice that you weren't. 4 minutes of you shutting me out. I didn't want to burden you. Stop saying that." Jennifer's voice cracked. "I'm not a child anymore. I'm 39 years old. I have 2 kids, a husband, a career. I can handle things, but you won't let me. You won't let anyone in." Maggie's hands trembled in her lap. "I don't know how anymore." Jennifer sat back down, reached across the table. "Then learn to start now. Let me help you. I can't take your money. Why, give me one good reason that isn't about pride." Maggie opened her mouth, closed it good. She had no answer. Jennifer pulled out her phone again, this time opening something and turning it toward Maggie. "Look at this." It was her call log. Maggie saw her own name over and over, dozens of calls, hundreds of calls, 127 calls in the past 2 years. Jennifer said, "Average length 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Look at the dates. Every single Sunday. I never missed one." She scrolled to text messages next. And these, look, drafts, unsent messages. Maggie read them, one after another. "I miss you, Mom. The kids ask why Grammy doesn't visit anymore. Please let me help. I can tell something's wrong. I don't know what I did to make you pull away. I love you. Why won't you let me love you?" 67 unsent messages, all written late at night. Jennifer said, written and rewritten and never sent, because she knew her mother would just say she was fine. I wrote those at midnight, Jennifer whispered, after everyone else was asleep, sitting in my kitchen, crying, trying to figure out what I did wrong, why my mother didn't want me anymore. Oh, honey, Maggie's voice broke. You didn't do anything wrong? Nothing. This was all me? Then tell me why. Why did you shut me out? Maggie looked at her hands, at her wedding ring that she still wore after 5 years. When your father died, something inside me died too. I couldn't feel anything except pain, so I stopped feeling. I pushed everyone away because if I let them close, I'd have to feel again. And I was so scared that if I started feeling, I'd fall apart completely. So you felt nothing instead? Yes. Jennifer reached over, took both of Maggie's hands. Mom, I need to show you something else. She pulled up a different screen. Flight bookings. Maggie saw her own address listed as the destination. 5 different bookings over the past 2 years. June 20. Jennifer said, I booked tickets to come see you for your birthday. Called to tell you. You said you weren't feeling well. Maybe next month? I canceled. She scrolled. Thanksgiving 20, booked for all 4 of us. Called to confirm. You said you'd made other plans. I canceled. March 24, spring break. You were too busy with yard work. June 2024, Emma's birthday. She wanted to celebrate with Grammy. You had a doctor's appointment that week. August 2024, right before you found the bump. Probably. You said maybe Christmas instead. Each cancellation had cost money. Hundreds of dollars in change fees and lost deposits. I kept trying, Jennifer said, because you're my mother, because I love you, because I kept hoping that this time you'd say yes, that this time you'd let me in. Maggie was crying now, really crying. I didn't know. I didn't realize. I know you didn't. Because you were so wrapped up in your own pain that you couldn't see mine. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. I'm so sorry. Jennifer squeezed her mother's hands. I forgive you, Mom. But you have to stop this. You have to let people help you, starting with me. Maggie nodded, unable to speak. We're paying for the surgery, Jennifer said firmly. And you're not going to argue? Okay. Okay, Maggie whispered. Jennifer came around the table, hugged her mother. They sat there for a long time, holding each other, crying together, beginning to heal. The next morning, Maggie woke to sounds she hadn't heard in years. Children's laughter downstairs. Jennifer's voice saying, Use your indoor voice, Lucas. The coffee maker beeping, life filling her empty house. She got dressed and went downstairs. Jennifer was making pancakes while Emma set the table and Lucas built a tower with sugar packets. Morning, Mom. Coffee's ready. They ate breakfast together, crowded around the kitchen table. Maggie watched her grandchildren, really watched them. Emma was careful and thoughtful, cutting her pancakes into precise squares. Lucas was all energy, talking nonstop about dinosaurs and soccer and a kid at school named Marcus who could burp the alphabet. After breakfast, Dr. Bennett's office called to schedule the surgery. October 2nd. 2.5 weeks away. Pre-op appointment on September 25th. Maggie wrote down the information, hung up, stared at the paper. It was really happening. I'll come with you, Jennifer said, to all the appointments. You don't have to stay that long. Your job. I took family leave. 2 weeks, maybe 3 if needed. David's handling things at home. Jennifer, Mom, stop, I'm staying. The days that followed were strange and wonderful. Jennifer helped Maggie sort through medical paperwork. They called the insurance company together, navigating the maze of coverage and copays and deductibles. The numbers were dizzying. Surgery estimate $16,847. Medicare would cover approximately $10,456 after the deductible. Maggie's portion $6,391, plus lab work and anesthesia charges that would likely add another $2,000. Maggie sat at the kitchen table, calculator in hand, trying to make the numbers work. She had $7,900 in savings after the biopsy. This would wipe her out completely and leave her in debt. "We're covering it," Jennifer said for the 10th time. "I know. I don't like it." "I know you don't, but sometimes we have to accept things we don't like." Bob came by every morning, still bringing 2 coffees. Now he'd find Maggie on the porch with Jennifer and the kids. Emma loved Bob immediately, asking him endless questions about his truck and his garden and whether he'd ever seen a real buffalo. Lucas showed him the dinosaur facts he'd memorized. "Your grandkids are something else," Bob said one morning after the kids went inside. "I barely know them," Maggie admitted. "I missed so much." "You're here now. That's what matters." On September 24th, Jennifer got a call from her husband, David. Maggie could only hear Jennifer's side of the conversation, but it sounded serious. When Jennifer hung up, her face was troubled. "Everything okay?" Maggie asked. "David's mother fell, broke her hip. She's in the hospital in San Diego. They're talking about surgery tomorrow." "Oh, no. You should go home." "My pre-op appointment is tomorrow. The surgery is next week. David needs you. Your kids need you. Your mother-in-law needs you." Jennifer shook her head. "You need me, too." "Jennifer, no, Mom. For once in your life, let someone put you first. David can handle things there. I'm staying here." Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." The pre-op appointment at Cedar Rapids Dermatology Center was thorough and intimidating. Dr. Catherine Bennett was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who explained the Mohs procedure in detail. Layer by layer, removal of cancerous tissue. Microscopic examination of each layer until they reached clear margins. Could take several hours depending on how deep the cancer went. The financial counselor came in next. A kind woman named Patricia, who went through every cost line by line. Total estimate, $16,847. Insurance would pay $10,456. Patient responsibility, $6,391. Due day of surgery, plus $400 for pre-op lab work. Due today. Patricia explained payment plans. 50% down the day of surgery, $3,195.50. The balance could be paid over 12 months at 0% interest. Maggie's hand shook as she wrote the check for the lab work. $400. Her checking account balance after this, $5,104.50. "Mom, let me pay this," Jennifer whispered. "I've got it." Maggie handed the check to Patricia with trembling fingers. In the car afterward, Maggie was silent. Bob drove while Jennifer sat in back with the kids, who were staying with Patty for the day. "You okay?" Bob asked. Just thinking about money? Don't. Easy for you to say. Bob was quiet for a moment. Then, Helen's cancer treatment cost us over $300,000, even with insurance. We sold her car, took out a second mortgage, borrowed from our retirement, and you know what? It didn't matter. She died anyway. Maggie looked at him, saw the pain etched in his profile. What I learned, Bob continued, is that money is just money. It comes and goes. But people are what matter. Your life is worth more than whatever debt this creates. That evening, Maggie sat at her kitchen table going through her finances again, obsessively calculating, looking for solutions that didn't exist. She could pay the 50% down $3,195.50. That would leave her with $1,909. Then she'd owe another $3,195.50 over the next year, plus the anesthesia and pathology bills that hadn't been calculated yet, probably $2,000 more. She was going to be broke. At 67 years old, with a fixed income of $1,847 a month, she was going to be in debt with almost no savings. The panic attack came suddenly, chest tight, breath short, room spinning. She gripped the edge of the table. Jennifer found her like that. Mom? Mom? What's wrong? I can't breathe. I can't. Jennifer guided her through breathing exercises. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Slowly, the panic receded. I'm going to lose everything, Maggie whispered. No, you're not. You're going to live. That's not losing. That's winning. On October 1st, the day before surgery, Maggie couldn't sleep. She got up at midnight, went to the kitchen, turned on the light, found Jennifer already there, sitting at the table with tea. Couldn't sleep either, Jennifer asked. Maggie sat down. Here, me too. They sat in silence for a while. Then Jennifer said, Do you remember when I was 8 and I fell off the monkey bars? Broke my arm. Of course, you were so brave. Didn't cry until we got to the hospital. I wasn't brave. I was terrified. But you held my hand the whole time. In the ER, during the x-rays, when they set the bone, you kept saying, I'm right here, honey. You're not alone. Maggie's throat tightened. Tomorrow, Jennifer said, I'm going to hold your hand, and I'm going to say the same thing. You're not alone, Mom. October 2nd arrived cold and gray. Bob picked them up at 5:30 a.m. Jennifer had arranged for Patty to watch Emma and Lucas. The drive to Cedar Rapids felt both too long and too short. At the surgical center, Maggie changed into a gown, had an IV inserted, answered the same questions 3 times from different nurses. Jennifer sat beside her bed in the pre-op area, holding her hand exactly as promised. Dr. Bennett stopped by. Ready, as I'll ever be. We'll take good care of you. The procedure usually takes 2 to 4 hours, depending on how many layers we need to remove. Your daughter can wait in the family lounge. We'll update her regularly. The anesthesiologist came next, explained the local anesthetic with sedation. You'll be awake but relaxed, won't feel any pain. At 7:30, they wheeled Maggie toward the operating room. She saw Bob through a window, standing in the waiting area. He waved. Then she saw something that made her breath catch. The waiting room was full. Not just Bob. Patty was there. And Sarah Williams in street clothes, her day off. And Karen from the medical center reception desk. and 3 other people Maggie recognized from town, former students, parents of kids she'd taught, neighbors she'd waved to for years. "Why are they all here?" she whispered to the nurse. The nurse smiled. "For you." Jennifer squeezed her hand. "You matter to people, Mom. You always have. You just forgot." The last thing Maggie saw before they took her into surgery was Jennifer's face, steady and strong and full of love. "I'm right here, Mom. You're not alone." Then the medicine made everything soft and distant, and she closed her eyes. When she woke in recovery 90 minutes later, groggy and confused, Bob's face swam into focus. "You waited?" Her voice came out thick. "Of course I waited. We all waited. All 12 of us out there. Would have been more, but it's a work day." Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" Bob smiled, squeezed her hand. "Because you're Maggie Sullivan, and this town loves you, whether you believe it or not." The next morning, Maggie woke to sounds she'd almost forgotten existed, or children's laughter drifting up the stairs, Jennifer's voice in the kitchen saying something about using indoor voices, the coffee maker beeping. The house was alive. She got dressed slowly, listening to the symphony of family life below. When she came downstairs, Jennifer was flipping pancakes while Emma set the table with careful precision and Lucas built an elaborate tower from sugar packets that kept collapsing. "Morning, Mom, coffee's ready." They ate breakfast together, all 4 of them crowded around the kitchen table. Maggie watched her grandchildren really watch them. Emma cut her pancakes into perfect squares, methodical and thoughtful. Lucas talked nonstop about dinosaurs and soccer and a kid at school named Marcus who could burp the entire alphabet. After breakfast, Dr. Bennett's office called. The surgery was scheduled for October 2nd, just over 2 weeks away. Pre-op appointment on September 25th. Maggie wrote down the information with shaking hands while Jennifer stood beside her, solid and present. The days that followed felt surreal. Jennifer helped her sort through medical paperwork, called the insurance company, navigated the maze of coverage details. The numbers were staggering. Surgery estimate, $16,847. Medicare would cover approximately $10,456. After the deductible, Maggie's portion $6,391, plus lab work, anesthesia, pathology likely another $2,000. Maggie sat at the kitchen table with her calculator, trying to make the numbers work. She had $7,900 in savings after the biopsy. This would wipe her out completely and leave her thousands in debt. "We're covering it," Jennifer said for what felt like the 100th time. "I know. I just hate it." "I know you do, but sometimes we have to accept things we hate." Bob still came by every morning with 2 coffees. Now he'd find Maggie on the porch with Jennifer and the kids. Emma loved him immediately, asking endless questions about his truck and his garden and whether he'd ever seen a real buffalo. Lucas showed him every dinosaur fact he'd memorized, which was considerable. "Your grandkids are something else," Bob said one morning after the kids went inside. "I barely know them," Maggie admitted. "I missed so much. You're here now. That's what matters." On September 24th, Jennifer got a call from David. Her mother-in-law had fallen and broken her hip. She was in the hospital in San Diego. They were talking about surgery the next day. "Everything okay?" Maggie asked when Jennifer hung up, her face troubled. "David's mother is in the hospital. Broken hip. Surgery tomorrow." "You should go home." My pre-op appointment is tomorrow. Your surgery is next week. David needs you. Your kids need you. His mother needs you. Jennifer shook her head firmly. You need me too. Jennifer. No, Mom. For once in your life, let someone put you first. David can handle things there. I'm staying here. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. The pre-op appointment at Cedar Rapids Dermatology Center was thorough and somewhat terrifying. Dr. Catherine Bennett was a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and a direct manner. She explained the Mohs procedure in detail, removing the cancer layer by layer, examining each layer under a microscope until they reached clear margins. It could take several hours depending on how deep the cancer had grown. There would be a scar, possibly a significant one, depending on how much tissue they had to remove. Might need some reconstruction. I don't care about a scar, Maggie said. Dr. Bennett smiled slightly. Good. Vanity kills more people than it should. Then came the financial counselor, a kind woman named Patricia, who went through every cost line by line. Total estimate $16,847. Insurance would pay $10,456. Patient responsibility $6,391. Due day of surgery plus $400 for today's lab work. The counselor explained payment plans. 50% down the day of surgery, $3,195.50. The balance could be paid over 12 months at 0% interest. Maggie's hands shook as she wrote the check for the lab work. $400. Her account balance after this, $5,104.50. After the surgery deposit, she'd have less than $2,000 left. For how many months of living? Mom, let me pay this, Jennifer whispered. I've got it. Maggie handed the check to Patricia with trembling fingers. In the car afterward, Maggie was silent. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. You okay? Bob asked from the driver's seat. Just thinking about money. Don't. Easy for you to say. Bob was quiet for a moment. Then, Helen's cancer treatment cost us over $300,000. Even with insurance, we sold her car, took out a second mortgage, borrowed from retirement, and you know what? She died anyway. Maggie looked at him, saw the old pain etched in his profile. What I learned, Bob continued, is that money is just money. It comes and goes. But people are what matter. Your life is worth more than whatever debt this creates. That evening, Maggie sat at the kitchen table going through her finances again, obsessively calculating, looking for solutions that didn't exist. $3,195.50 for the down payment. That would leave her with $1,909. Then monthly payments on the remaining $3195.50, plus the additional bills that hadn't been calculated yet. She was going to be broke. At 67, on a fixed income, she was going to be in debt with almost no cushion. The panic attack hit suddenly. Chest tight, breath short, room spinning. She gripped the table edge. Jennifer found her like that. Mom, what's wrong? I can't breathe. Jennifer guided her through breathing exercises. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Slowly, the panic receded. I'm going to lose everything, Maggie whispered. No, You're going to live. That's not losing. That's winning. October 1st, the night before surgery, Maggie couldn't sleep. She got up at midnight, went to the kitchen, turned on the light. Jennifer was already there with tea. Couldn't sleep either. Maggie sat down, scared. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jennifer said, "Do you remember when I was 8 and fell off the monkey bars? Broke my arm, of course. You were so brave. Didn't cry until we got to the hospital. I wasn't brave. I was terrified, but you held my hand the whole time. In the ER, during the x-rays, when they set the bone, you kept saying, 'I'm right here. Honey, you're not alone.'" Maggie's throat tightened. "Tomorrow," Jennifer said, "I'm going to hold your hand, and I'm going to say the same thing. You're not alone, Mom." October 2nd arrived cold and gray. Bob picked them up at 5:30. Jennifer had arranged for Patty to watch Emma and Lucas. The drive to Cedar Rapids felt both endless and too short. At the surgical center, Maggie changed into a gown, had an IV inserted, answered the same questions from 3 different nurses. Jennifer sat beside her bed in pre-op, holding her hand exactly as promised. Dr. Bennett stopped by, ready as I'll ever be. We'll take good care of you. At 7:30, they wheeled Maggie toward the operating room. Through a window, she saw Bob in the waiting area. He waved. Then she saw something that stopped her breath. The waiting room was full, not just Bob. Patty was there, Sarah Williams in street clothes, Karen from the medical center, 3 other people from town, former students, neighbors. "Why are they all here?" she whispered to the nurse. The nurse smiled. "For you." Jennifer squeezed her hand. "You matter to people, Mom. You always have." The last thing Maggie heard before the sedation took hold was Jennifer's voice. "I'm right here. You're not alone." When she woke in recovery, groggy and confused, Bob's weathered face swam into focus. "You waited?" "Of course. We all did. 12 of us." "Why?" Bob smiled, squeezed her hand gently. "Because you're Maggie Sullivan, and this town loves you. Sometimes the hardest prison to escape is the one we build ourselves." Maggie spent 5 years behind walls of her own making, convinced that needing help meant weakness, that accepting love meant being a burden. She pushed away her daughter, her neighbors, her community, all because she believed the lie that strength meant standing alone. But here's the truth that saved her life. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. The moment Maggie finally let people in, everything changed. Not because her problems disappeared, but because she discovered something she'd forgotten. She mattered. Her life had value. And the people around her had been waiting, hoping, praying for the chance to show her love. We all carry Maggie's struggle inside us. We've all built walls, convinced ourselves we're fine when we're breaking, smiled through pain because asking for help feels like failure. But what if the strongest thing you could do today is reach out? What if letting someone care for you is the bravest act of all? You don't have to face tomorrow alone. Someone is waiting to hold your hand. Let them. Have you ever pushed people away when you needed them most? What finally helped you let someone back in? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.